I think what she's shown is real cowardice, and that disappoints me greatly. Her job is to commentate and to give her opinion, and she does it on the left all the time. So if she wasn't in her position, I couldn't care less. But if she purports to be this beacon of truth and someone who will never err in delivering on that, she's completely failed. Megyn's been number one, I think, most days for the past month. So whatever she's doing, it's working for her. Yes, you can have friendships, but if those people are hosting Nazi sympathizers, then you've got to make a choice. What do I really stand for here?
Yeah, but Erin, we've got to show unity. The right has to unify.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, it does. They ain't on the right. Anyone who believes that crap does not have a place within this tent at all. And if they do, then that is the end of it.
Your interview that you just published, it was a groundbreaking interview with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What's your assessment of him?
I admire his courage and his strength, and I admire his ability to shut out noise around him. A lot of people say that he is driven by a lot of self-interest. I mean, I don't think there's any human being in the world that doesn't have an element of that, but I feel like there would be other ways in which he could self-serve, and I genuinely believe that his love of country exceeds any other motivation for him. Dad's story, it's the reason I do what I do. I remember one time there was going to be a protest at a university about him where they were holding up placards calling him a war criminal. And I was so upset at the thought of people calling my hero dad a war criminal when he was not. And he looked at me and he said, "You haven't made it, Ern, till they call you a war criminal." And I kind of went, what the? And he said, I fight for their right to do this.
Okay, everyone, today we are joined by someone who has become one of the most recognizable and, more importantly, courageous voices in Australian and global media, who has boldly stood up for Israel and the Jewish people, despite herself being neither Israeli or Jewish, and who has not shied away from speaking the truth, even when it comes at great cost. Erin Molan. And before I start the conversation, I just want to show you that she has actually just released a major interview with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And as well as that, Erin has become one of the leading voices online calling out moral confusion around Israel and the West. Erin, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you. It's morning for you, it's evening for me here in London, but nonetheless, great to be speaking to you.
Oh, Ollie, thank you for that very flattering introduction, and it's such a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me. It's a bizarre world in which I am now defined by not being Jewish and not being Israeli, but I'll take it.
Well, it's highly, highly deserved praise. And listen, for some reason, it's a rarity to have non-Jewish people who can see the world in a sane, moral way. Or maybe there are lots of people that do, but they're scared to speak out. And you're one of those people that, I don't know if you are or not nervous to, but you do it. And we're very appreciative of that. I'm curious to start off by speaking about your interview that you just published. It was a groundbreaking interview with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The first thing is just on a personal level, you got a bit of time to speak to him one-on-one. What's your assessment of him?
Great question. Look, he's a busy man, clearly. He's got a good sense of humour. He made a joke about me joining the BBC at the end of the interview, which I don't know if I should be absolutely offended by or taken the way in which it was intended. Look, I think he's a very strong person. I think he is a wartime leader, absolutely. As I said to him at the end, he is by no means perfect, and he has not made every decision perfectly. That would be completely impossible. But I have a lot of respect for him, and I say that as an Australian who doesn't get a front row seat to the domestic issues that those in Israel do and that impact them directly. But I admire his courage and his strength, and I admire his ability to shut out noise around him. And some of that noise is absolutely legitimate. He's a world leader. Much of that noise in this space, completely illegitimate, unfounded, untrue, and, funded by nefarious states who wish us all harm. So I think it would be so difficult to be in his position, but I have a lot of respect for him.
Did anything surprise you about him? That people at home watching would never know?
I think for me, I'm always looking for the human side of people, and I think that's what makes my conversations and interviews different. Essentially, is that I like to go beyond their kind of, the rhetoric that someone might use in office, and go a little deeper. And when I asked him about his son and about his wife and the attacks that they are subjected to, he seemed to get quite emotional. And I think for him, one of the reasons that people almost treat him as though he is not human is because he rarely shows a human side, because he can't, to be honest. His enemies will jump on that. He cannot show any weakness. He cannot show vulnerability. He cannot show emotion that is anything other than staunch, solid confidence in who Israel is and what they're going to do. But that answer to that question gave me a little bit more insight into the human being that he is, and the man that he is. And I think, a lot of people say that he is driven by a lot of self-interest. I mean, I don't think there's any human being in the world that doesn't have an element of that is part of being a human being. But I feel like there would be other ways in which he could self-serve than the way he's doing now. I think it is incredibly difficult, and I genuinely believe that his love of country exceeds any other motivation for him.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think that's a completely fair assessment. And I know we're short on time, so I'm going to be jumping around a few different topics just to get your hot takes on different things. But you've spoken a lot about, the woke left and how they've gone completely insane, and Greta Thunberg and the other great saints and leaders of their cause and their insanity with regard to Israel. But we're increasingly seeing a rise of a woke right, or woke Reich, as Netanyahu referred to it as. Whether it's Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens or others who are going down this very dark path. But someone I wanted to talk about specifically that maybe hasn't been mentioned so much until recently is Megyn Kelly. Because at first, I've always want to be very generous to people and have generous interpretations of what I see. So initially, she just seemed to be ignoring it and what's happening with Tucker and Candace and others. But then she started saying, calling for unity and saying, we need unity. And I thought, but unity in the face of people that are kind of laundering appalling views. And then it got worse when I started to see her attack the Ben Shapiros and the Mark Levins, because why aren't they being unified? And because she didn't like, and it just seemed to be this kind of double standard almost, where she's providing cover for them and then also pleading ignorance. Like I just saw a tweet that I wanted to show you that said, "Here's where we're at, guys. Tucker Carlson's job is to launder bad ideas from folks like Fuentes, Candace, and others. And then Megyn Kelly's job is to play the role of the unbiased normie who makes falling for Tucker and Candace's shtick look like the sane and honest position. She's the launderer of the launderer, in other words." That, to me, seemed a fair assessment at this point. I wanted to know what's your perspective on Megyn?
Yeah, I've called her out a few times, and I'm someone who's been a big fan of hers for many years, and a lot of people kind of have called me for a long time the Australian Megyn Kelly, or the next Megyn Kelly, which used to be very flattering. and look, I'm not saying that can't be the case again, and I'm talking about flattering for me, not for her, of course. I think what she's shown is, I think, real cowardice, and that disappoints me greatly. And I'll make the point, I don't expect her I don't care if she comes out and condemns people or doesn't condemn people, but, her job is to commentate and to give her opinion, and she does it on the left all the time. So if she wasn't in her position, I couldn't care less. But if she purports to be this beacon of truth and someone who will never err in delivering on that, she's completely failed in that space. And I feel like you're right. There are elements to her. It's not even that she's just kind of indifferent to it. She is supportive of things that are evil. She excuses the kind of rhetoric that resulted in the Holocaust. And I think when you enter into that sphere, it becomes very dangerous, and you lose credibility very quickly. And again, yes, you can have friendships, and yes, you can support people that you're close to or that you feel a certain loyalty to. But if those people are hosting Nazi sympathizers, then you've got to make a choice. What do I really stand for here? And it's not a difference of political opinion. I couldn't care less. I am very good friends with people who I'm not politically aligned with. I don't see supporting Hitler as a political thing. That is, who are you as a person? What do you value? Are you a good person or are you an evil person? So when it enters into that sphere, I don't think you can afford to say, no, I'm just going to stay out of this one. There's too much at stake with people who push those kind of ideologies. So I've been really disappointed in not just what she's allowed to pass by, but what she has also tried to excuse. And I think when you say my only enemies are on the left, I have no enemies on the right, well, that's BS. You must fight anyone, regardless of what side politically they purport to sit on, who threatens the way of life that you believe greatly in and that you are fighting for. And for me, that is freedom, democracy, hope, peace, all of these wonderful things. People trying to tell the world that Hitler wasn't bad, that threatens a way of life that I believe in and that I'm fighting for. So they then become a legitimate person to take umbrage with and to criticize. And if you're not willing to do that, then I think it's cowardly, unless, of course, you agree with it, in which case that's maybe even worse.
Yeah, but Erin, we've got to show unity. The right has to unify.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, it does. They ain't on the right. Anyone who believes that crap does not have a place within this tent at all. And if they do, then that is the end of it. Then that signals the end of whatever this movement is, whatever this conservative kind of movement towards what we all apparently believe in is. If they are allowed within this tent with those kind of beliefs and pushing those kind of ideologies, then this tent is going to collapse very quickly.
Yeah. And I'm very cautious to psychoanalyze people, and I refrain from doing that. But just because I'm seeing this phenomenon go more and more, I'm trying to make sense of it. Do you have any sense of what could, just to speculate, what could be motivating her?
Look, it's a great question. And I mean, when push comes to shove, look at where she's rating. I check the podcast charts multiple times a day. You can call it an obsession. I'm very new into this game. And by the way, we're growing at an incredible rate, the Erin Molan Show. So make sure you check us out.
Great
But
stuff.
Those who tend to enter into this space do very, very well. Megyn's been number one, I think, most days for the past month. More often than not, she is number one. So whatever she's doing, it's working for her. Whether people can't stand it, whether people love it, whether people are saying, she's lost her way, they're still watching and they're still listening. So if you are motivated by success in this space and by, advertising dollars and by, audience numbers, then this is a pretty good space to be in. And, you can also, Ben Shapiro does incredibly well as well. They all kind of play off each other. I'm much more aligned to what he believes, clearly. And I think, he's very much a beacon of hope and truth. But regardless, if you play in this space and you're constantly pot-shotting and you're being a little bit conspiracy theorist and you're talking about Tucker and you're talking about Candace and you're taking shots at Levin and you're taking shots at Shapiro, for whatever reason, this stuff blows up and it rates. So from a very basic level of, I want to be number one, well, you found a formula and it's working very effectively for you. But I would say, what matters more? What matters more to me? Yes, I'm driven professionally. Yes, I have the greatest desire to be number one and to be an immense success because I care deeply and I think I produce an incredible product. But would I ever compromise on what matters and what I value and what I believe in to get there? Never. Never, ever, ever. And that's me. Wow. That's not everyone.
Yeah, and I think your explanation makes sense. Usually the most simple explanation is the right one. This is a bit of a question that totally from left field, but I was curious to ask it when I was doing a bit of research into you for this interview. I understand that you're Roman Catholic by background, and it's interesting because some of the leading figures of the woke right parade their Catholicism as the answer to Christian denominations that support Israel, and yet you're Catholic and you're super pro-Israel. And I was just curious why that is, and also why you think there are some Catholic communities that can be more divided on this topic than, say, evangelicals who are much more kind of consistently supportive. Yeah.
Look, this is one space. I mean, there's many spaces I feel completely unqualified to comment in, but I'll be completely honest with you in terms of, I mean, I should I should try and move closer to God and re-engage with my religion. I was born, raised Catholic, went to church every week, baptized, communion, the whole thing. But in terms of being really heavily engaged in it, not so much, not so much.
Fair.
But I think a lot of this weaponizing of religion, it doesn't matter what it is, everything gets weaponized and used to suit an agenda and to push a narrative. And I think this is just another example of it. I think even, you can look at biblical things. You can, watch Dinesh D'Souza's amazing documentaries that go back through different elements. You can read books about how, Jesus and Israel and the Jews and there are so many compelling arguments for why anyone of Christian faith should stand with Israel and support the Jewish people. But I think just from a basic level of what does Christianity teach us to value, and what was I raised to consider important in my life, it aligns just so extremely well with Israel and with the religion of Judaism. So from my perspective, that's where it comes from. For me, it was how I was raised and what I was taught to value. I think, this, and I know Tucker does it a lot in terms of referencing different strains of Christianity and elements of it. I think all of that is just looking for anything they can to espouse hate.
Well, speaking of how you're raised, this was actually going to be my next question, which was, again, the fact that, just bring up the fact that you're not Jewish, and yet you speak out so boldly as you do on this topic. I was curious to know a bit more about who have been some of your biggest personal inspirations that have shaped your courage, your worldviews. And I've read a bit about, your father, who was an Australian senator, and I know that he was major for you.
He was huge, Major General. Thank you so much. I know what you meant, major for me. He was He was without any doubt the greatest influence on my life. And I mean, alongside my beautiful mum, who doesn't get any credit and is more impressive than all of us combined, including my dad. But for these purposes, Dad's story it's the reason I do what I do. And I look at how he has led by example in so many ways. And he was a Major General in the Army when he retired. He then entered the Australian Senate and became the individually most voted for politician in Australian history. People loved him because, he was this big 6'4", no nonsense general, but he had a way with people that was so beautiful. He had a moral compass unlike any other. He was a man who cared deeply, but knew that strength was required and necessary to protect the values and our way of life. And he was willing to give his life for the Australian way of life and for what we value. He went to war in Iraq for a year. He ran the war in Iraq for a year for the US forces under General Petraeus, an incredible human being. And he fought the kind of terrorism that I'm trying to fight now in a very different capacity. He was brave. He was courageous. Just like, I look at Netanyahu and, he's a war criminal. They said my dad was a war criminal because he fought in Iraq against evil terrorists. It's absolute insanity. And I remember one time I was, a fair bit younger, and he was, there was going to be a protest at a university about him where they were holding up placards calling him a war criminal. And I was so upset at the thought of people calling my hero dad a war criminal when he was not. If he was a war criminal, they would have found out he was a war criminal. He would have been hello, there's enough evidence, even 20 years ago. He has a moral compass unlike any other. He was an incredible soldier and he led with the most integrity. He's amazing. But they protested, called him a war criminal. And, the next day I go into his office and he's got the bloody poster, one of them up on the wall because he was going to speak at the university, laminated. And he looked at me and he said, "You haven't made it, Ern, till they call you a war criminal." And I kind of went, "What the?" And he said, I fight for their right to do this. He said, "This is why I fight, for the freedom that they've just exercised in protesting me and calling me a war criminal." He could not care less because he knew who he was. He knew what he stood for. He knew how many lives he had saved. He knew the good that he was doing, and he knew how ignorant and stupid they were. But again, fought for their right to do exactly what they did, which was protest him. And I always remember that. And when they, when they call me names and when they come for me and when they threaten me and when they do all that kind of stuff, I'm my own harshest critic, right? There is no one who will ever be harder on me than me. No Iranian regime proxy who's sending me death threats, no idiot on a uni campus, no purported feminist who marches alongside Hamas and calls me names. No one will ever be more scathing of who I am as a person inside than I will be. And I promise you, Ollie, I go to bed every single night so absolutely comfortable and confident in who I am and what I stand for. I know without any doubt that I'm on the right side of history. And I have been equipped with whatever it is that enables me to do this. And a lot of that comes from my dad, because much to my detriment, we don't stop, we don't give up, we don't buckle under pressure, not in my family. That's not how we were raised. And I am determined that in 100 years, 200 years, I learned about the Holocaust in year 3 or year 4, and I could not understand why people did nothing. That was my thing. I couldn't understand the evil, but what really troubled me even more so than what they did was that people stood by and did nothing. And I never ever thought I would be tested in this space. Clearly, you never thought you'd be tested. But in 100 years or 200 years, when a 9-year-old is learning about October 7 and the epic failure of the world afterwards to turn good into evil and evil into good, I will not be someone that they will read about and think, I can't believe she did nothing. I will be the complete opposite, and that is enough for me. That is what keeps me going, because it's hard at times, as you know, in this space. It's hard for everyone, but it is that genuine belief in what I am doing, what I stand for, what I fight for, that it is good versus evil, and I'm on the side of good. That keeps me going, not just for you and your people, and I care deeply about Israel and the Jewish people, and I will stand with you forever, but selfishly for my little girl. What kind of world does she live in if people like me don't fight? This evil it's not going to destroy Israel and the Jews and then say, okay, we're done. It goes for everyone. It hates Western civilization. It hates America. It hates Australia. It hates UK. It hates Europe. It doesn't stop. When they drive a car into a crowd, an Islamic extremist, they're not checking what religion you are. They want to kill anyone and everyone. They want to kill Muslims. They kill their own people. You know, this threat is growing. It's already in our own countries. And I fight not just on behalf of your people, but I fight on behalf of Western civilization, because selfishly, we are all completely screwed. It's just most people haven't woken up to it yet, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Wow. Everyone needs to hear these words from Erin. And Erin, thank you also for that beautiful and inspiring tribute to your father, which once you hear that, your whole story makes a lot more sense. Erin, thank you so much.
Sure. Bless you. There's this saying, I remember when I'm an ambassador for bowel cancer in Australia, and this beautiful young girl died, and I went to her funeral maybe 10 years ago, and her dad got up and he said, in some cultures, they say people die twice. Once when you take your final breath, and the second time when people stop saying your name. And so for me, being able to say Jim Molan, being able to talk about my dad is the greatest honor. So thank you for allowing me to keep him alive for a little bit longer and to share his story, because it means so much to me. So thank you, Ollie. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed this chat.
Such a pleasure. You're an inspiration, and good luck with all your pursuits in the future. It's really, really needed. So thank you, Erin.
Bless you. And thank you for all you do as well. There are people in your position who choose not to speak out, and I understand why. You should not have to justify your existence or fight for your right to just be, but you do it, and you do it brilliantly. So thank you for using your voice in a really difficult space. It helps when I'm doing what I'm doing to see people around me who are doing the same thing. So thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to add as well that just as you said, you're doing it not just for Israel, but for your own daughters. I don't do this just for my people. I do this for the well-being of everyone, because I think the two things go completely hand in hand. They are the same in a way. So thank you so much, Erin. I know we're slightly over, so just super grateful for your time. Bless and look forward to the next one.
Bless you. Can't wait. Thanks, legend.
Before we wrap up, I want to share something important with you. The entire anti-Israel movement is built on one central accusation: that in 1948, Israel stole the land, and ever since, Palestinians have simply been resisting. But what if everything we've been told about this story is untrue? What if the real history of 1948 shows not Arabs being forced out, but Jews, while seeking peace, having to fight for their survival against a genocidal enemy that willed its destruction long before Israel's re-establishment? Have a watch of the trailer for our new, groundbreaking and essential documentary entitled What Really Happened in 1948. And if you want to see the full film, just click the link in the video description. In 1948, the world witnessed the rebirth of the Jewish state, the State of Israel. A moment celebrated as a miracle of survival and self-determination after centuries of persecution and the horrors of the Holocaust. Yet for decades, this event has been twisted into a narrative of theft and catastrophe, with the so-called Nakba portrayed as Israel's original sin, where Jews allegedly stole Arab land and displaced innocents in a premeditated act of ethnic cleansing. But what if this story is fundamentally inverted? What if the cause and effect are the other way around? Not Israel aggressively seizing territory and Arabs responding in self-defense, but Arabs, driven by deep-seated hatred, rejecting the Jews' legal and historical rights to live in their ancestral homeland and waging a genocidal war long before Israel's re-establishment. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the unvarnished truth about 1948, the centuries of pogroms and anti-Semitic violence that set the stage, the Arab leaders' explicit calls for extermination, and the defensive war Israel fought to secure its existence. We'll challenge the pervasive lies head-on, showing how Arab rejection of peace wasn't about creating a Palestinian state, but about denying Jews the right to live at all. From the Nazi-allied leader of the Arabs in Palestine, the Mufti al-Husseini, to the forgotten occupations by Jordan and Egypt, where no Palestinian state was even considered, this is the story of a conflict rooted not in displacement, but in whether the Jews deserve to live in their homeland. Join us as we debunk the myths with facts, confront the historical record fairly but firmly, and reveal why 1948 was not an act of aggression, but a righteous response to annihilation. This is what really happened in 1948. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.